Hey, this is Chris Scott, and you are listening to From Nothing to Profit.
Welcome to From Nothing to Profit, a photographer's podcast with Matt and Kaya, where each week they talk to photographers about what is working in their business now so you can swipe those ideas and grow your business faster.
Hey, everybody. So super excited about this episode. So my friend Chris Scott is on. It's going to be a little bit different than some of the other podcasts where we've interviewed photographers, because Chris and his wife actually don't live very far from me in Colorado Springs, but they own Swift Galleries, as well as, and Chris, you can tell me more about this, but you also have this whole mission right now where you're trying to move people from shoot and burn to in-person sales, right?
Yep, absolutely. So we run it's the Printmaker system, which is kind of our education side of things, and Swift Galleries, which is the tool itself that helps helps photographers show their clients what their photos will look like on their walls at the right size, and then walks them step by step through an entire in-person sales meeting. And we really kind of specialize in helping those shoot and burn photographers make the switch from shoot and burn over to in-person sales.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we do that through the podcast too, which is called the Printmaker Podcast.
Perfect. And Kai, you've never met Chris before, right?
No, but I'm super excited. When you told me what he was talking about, I just feel like that, Chris, that, you know, one of the things I want to learn is why you decided to make that, you know, one of your main things is teaching people how to do in-person sales. But from my viewpoint, I just feel like that is a way to really change photographers' lives and change it from something that they do on the side to something that they can do, you know, full time. So that's what I'm guessing you're going to say, but I'm curious. So.
Ooh, interesting, because I might come at it from a slightly different angle. So the reason that this is so that we're so passionate about this is because Adrian and I did run our own photography business for a number of years, and we started out as shoot and burn photographers. We made about $150 on average per session, and in our first year of switching to in-person sales, we went from those $150 averages to $120,000 in that first year, and it was absolutely life-changing for us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, it sounds overly dramatic, like it changed our lives. No, it did. It's a completely different life when, when you're kind of just scraping by to like, okay, we don't really have to worry about money, and we can really choose who we want to work with at this point. So we just started teaching some of our friends. This is back when we lived in Nashville. We started teaching some of our friends who are also photographers about what it is that we were doing. And that evolved into starting an app that was called Preveal. That was an iPad app that was kind of the precursor to where we are now with Swift Gallery. So yeah. And you know, my goal at this point is not necessarily to take people through the exact steps that we did where it's like, okay, now I'm going to show, I feel like there's so much 6-figure hype in the industry right now. And there are a lot of photographers who don't necessarily want to go full time, but they want to make this worth their time. And that's really where we're focused is let's take those moms, the stay-at-home moms or the weekend warriors or these shoot and burners, and let's figure out how we can help them make this worth their while. They're spending this time away from their families. They're spending this time away from, other commitments. How can we help them just make it worth their time and help them feel as fulfilled as we did? There's something. We talk about money a lot. We talk about, oh yeah, we made, X number of dollars a year and all of that, but that doesn't even touch that feeling that you get as an artist when a client hands you a check for $3,000 and then is like crying and hugging you and thanking you. Like that is the most surreal thing ever. And there's something to that as an artist that's like, wow, I made this money. I didn't just clock in and clock out. This person thinks I'm worth this. So if we can bring all of those things to these people who are just kind of slogging away day in and day out, then I think that we've done our job.
Very cool. Okay, Matt, what's our first question here?
I think let's start with kind of, Chris, what you see that's working in the industry now. So, and you can talk more about how that relates to the printmaker thing or whatever. But in the industry, what do you think is working for photographers now that you would want our audience to pay attention to?
Yeah. So virtual or remote in-person sales right now, I think is a something that a lot of photographers are not really tapping into. So this really fits in line with what it is that we're doing, trying to take these people who don't necessarily have a sales space or, all of this time to travel to and from their clients' homes or, any of that stuff, and saying, hey, you know what? You don't need all of that to do in-person sales. Really, all you need is a laptop and an internet connection. So being able to run a full in-person sales meeting using something like Zoom, and obviously I'm going to say Swift Galleries, and being able to get those benefits of in-person sales without really all of the overhead commitment, the space, having to clean up after your kids before somebody comes over, the travel time, all of that. We're seeing just a huge amount of success with our members doing remote in-person sales, basically just doing an in-person sales meeting in real time, just doing it all online though.
Yeah. And so the idea, right, in-person sales is that you're going to guide the customer through the purchasing process.
Yep.
And not just put it on a website and let them just figure it out for themselves and justify everything up and down. And, you're actually there to help them.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is like, you're still doing that guiding. You're just doing it virtually because you're on a Zoom call where,
Yep.
maybe sharing screens or looking at each other through webcams or whatever, and you're able to still guide them through that process.
Yep, exactly. So there are a handful of reasons that we believe in-person sales work. So number one is you are there, you're that guide, and there's so much to this. There's a lot that really needs to happen before the sales meeting, but just with respect to the sales meeting itself, you're there, you can guide them through it. Another really big aspect of it is that everyone is setting aside that time to do it. So that's a real big problem that we see with online sales is, you send over an email that says, hey, your gallery's ready, and your client's going to sit there in their boxer shorts at, 11 o'clock at night or worse at, 5 in the afternoon. And then life just gets in the way. The kids need to eat and it's time for bed and, all of that stuff. And those images that they genuinely are excited about, they never set aside the time to do anything with them, to do something about it. And then you layer on top of that what we were just talking about, this idea that clients really don't know what to do with stuff, and everybody talks about, oh, my clients only want digital files. Well, that's really our fault. We as an industry have taught our clients that that's all they need. So if you can step into that gap now and say, hey, you know what? There are other things that you can do with these. And if you truly believe, and this is what we believe, that my job as a photographer isn't done until I've helped you figure out what to do with these, so that I'm doing more than saying, hey, here are your files. Good luck figuring out what to do with them. Something like that. So instead, I'm saying, hey, I can walk you through this. And you're exactly right. I'm doing this all online so that I don't have the time commitment and the space commitment. Basically, I just need a blank wall behind me and a laptop and an internet connection. So
that's awesome. Well, and here's a really cool example. Like, I've always believed exactly what you said, that like, we just need, we need to educate our clients that what they can do with their portraits, because most people never buy photography. It's similar to like them buying a car, but the auto industry spends billions of dollars a year trying to educate them on how to buy a car. Yeah. But so we have an uphill challenge of having to do that without all the advertising dollars. But it's really interesting. So we just photographed a dance studio and did a lot of tips that we learned from Rose Coleman, who we had on the podcast months ago, and it was amazing. We actually did more print sales than digital sales at this, and there wasn't really an incentive to do prints over digital. We just used some of her systems to kind of educate them what was possible, and it was definitely like 70% sales and 30% digital, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, I was just going to say, I've been doing this for 20 years, and so I was totally print and then partial digital. And then I started a new studio and I was just like, I don't want to deal with this. And so I was mostly digital. And now my clients are coming back and saying, we don't want digital files because we're not doing anything with them. And so I'm actually transitioning all my pricing to have prints go with everything. And I don't know. I have a sad story that goes along with this. I don't know, what all you guys do to convince people to do it, but I can't get into my digital archives from 10 or 12, 15 years ago. Like those old hard drives, I can't get to link to my new computers. And so I just had a friend pass away about 6 months ago, and I had photographed her, but I could not get to those files. And so we had printed albums of her, and I photographed images from the album and used those. And so I'm just like, so convinced. I'm like, you have to print these because there's no guarantee that there's, Apple changes their little dongle every time they make a new thing.
Right.
There's no guarantee I'm going to be able to get to these.
Yeah. We jokingly refer to it as, it's cool. I backed all my photos up on MySpace.
Yeah.
It's like, nobody's ever saying that, but at some point that's what everybody was thinking. And this technology is going to change. And yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So real quick, I kind of want you to tell us a little bit more about your story in terms of like, just kind of quickly how you ended up in the software space. And kind of that, and then right after that, we'll take a break, and then we'll ask you some more questions about where you see the industry going and stuff.
Cool.
So how did you end up in software? I don't know what you want to call it, but maybe sales as a service, or software as a service. But how did you end up there?
Yeah, it was really just kind of dumb luck. We so we were shooting weddings and portraits full time. For a number of years, and we were waiting for ProSelect to make a mobile version of ProSelect because we were ProSelect users at the time, and they didn't do it. We literally waited a year, and then we just said, screw it, let's try this. And it was one of these things where it was like the husband of a friend, and I knew nothing about software development at the time. Like I was like, hey, your husband writes code, right? Like, and that was, to me, that was like, oh, so clearly he can do this. And we just got really lucky, and he could do it. And that's, Prevail kind of took off, right? Just immediately took off. It was very surprising to us. And that was right about the time that we had our first kid. We have a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. And, that was about the time that we had our first kid. We moved from Tennessee to Colorado, and it took over our lives. We jokingly, not even jokingly, we thought, okay, we're going to launch this thing and it's going to make us money while we sleep. And then now we just don't sleep anymore. It just took over. So it actually ended up being a really good transition for us. I was recently diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and was starting to, now that I look back, I was starting to really deal with a lot of those symptoms where I couldn't, we'd get to the end of a doubleheader wedding weekend and I wouldn't be able to pick things up for a few days, or, worse, I wouldn't be able to grab a glass of water in the mornings or something like that. And I thought, wow, I'm just really out of shape. Come to find out now, it was all of this stuff kind of coming up. So all of these kind of culminated in us moving markets and all of that and saying, hey, you know what? This is actually a full-time job. Let's treat it like one. So we bowed out of shooting full-time and then just started running software. And from there, we made our education a little bit more formal, as opposed to just sitting down and having milkshakes with friends and talking about what it is that we're doing. We started, putting together some courses and stuff, and that's kind of led to where we are now with the Printmaker system. So what we do now is a course called The Path to Printmaker, and it kind of walks people through how to attract the right clients to their business, how to excite them about products, and then how to delight them with a sales process that feels nothing like sales. And then we pair that with the Swift Galleries tool, and then a community that we call the Printmaker Coalition online.
Cool. Yeah. What I think so cool about your platform is I think the power of what you're doing is in the education.
Yes.
And then it's but you know how the education goes. You watch something and you're like, oh yeah, well this sounds all great. Yeah. Okay, I get it. But in the ideal world, of course, I would do all this stuff, Chris.
Right.
And then you're able to say, well, here's Swift Galleries. It's kind of the shortcut,
Yep.
To make this happen for you, where you don't have to wreck your brain about it. It just makes it simple for you. So that's pretty cool that they kind of go together for sure.
Yeah, thanks, man. That was really our goal, was this idea that education and tools, education at this point is a dime a dozen. You can find this stuff online, but it becomes this kind of mess of so we refer to it, or to me, it's sort of dumping like a dozen different puzzles into one pile and then trying to make sense of the mess, because I have a ton of access to education, but I really don't know how this fits together. So, if you look at like the Facebook groups that are out there, like, yeah, they're a wealth of free information, but it's literally coming at you every few seconds in no discernible order. And you're like, well, how does this tip from this person fit with this thing from this person, fit with this step from over here? So we wanted to look and say, like, you know what? We're really stinking good at this. So let's just build out this full end-to-end thing that says, like, look, we're going to show you how to sell. Then we're going to show you how to take that concept of sales and apply it to the tool that we've already built that was literally built to support this sales process in the first place. And then we're going to show you how to launch that. So it really is this kind of end-to-end solution where you could come in the front end knowing nothing about in-person sales and come out the back end 21 days later with an in-person sales business launched, and you have the tools, you have the education, you have everything in place. So that was kind of our goal, is to take that person who knows nothing about this and say, hey, you know what? Don't worry about searching all over the internet for it. Here's everything you need. And can you make it better from here? Absolutely. But here's your baseline. Let's get you launched.
Yeah,
okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
Wait. Don't move on. So, well, I mean, that it's so funny because I think Matt and I, the problem is when we bring educators on, we're like, okay, I'm going to buy that next. I'm going to buy that.
Right.
You've sold us, but, I've been doing in-person sales for like 15 years, but I'm still sold on the wording that you just used. And so back up and say the like phrase that you were like, delight them with a process. What was that phrasing?
Yeah. So we break our process, the sales process itself, we call it, now you're putting me on the spot. No, we call it, attract, excite, and delight. We're going to attract the right people to our business by setting expectations right up front. Everywhere someone sees your work, you want them to see what products you offer, the price that you sell those products at, and the process they're going to go through to get that. So that's what we call the attract step. So you're going to attract the right people to your business. From there, we're going to excite them about those products that we've set expectations for. So that's going to be through their communication with you, through the planning meeting, which I really love the way that we teach, that our people do planning meetings. It really sets the stage for a very low key sales meeting. Basically, all the selling happens up front. If you get to the sales meeting and you feel like you're selling somebody on it, then something has gone wrong earlier in the process. So we have the attract step. Excite is going to be through your communication, through the planning meeting, and then through the session itself. We're using the session itself to continue to build excitement for the products that we've discussed throughout the process so far. And then the last piece is delight, where we're going to delight them with a sales experience that feels nothing like sales. And it's because we've done all of that stuff up front and it never looked like sales. It always looks like service. It's really us truly customizing a process for each or like a sales experience for each and every client, all the way down to tell me about your space. What color are the walls? What does your artwork look like? And now based on all of these things I know about you, here's what I think we should do. So like we go into sale or into a session knowing exactly where we're going to shoot, what time we need to shoot, what they're going to wear, all of these things. But like these are things that sometimes we just, as photographers, we just do arbitrarily, like, yeah, just wear khakis and white shirts. It's cool, guys. But our photographers now get to go into a session with reasons for all of these suggestions. Okay, based on the colors in your room, the artwork that you already have in there, the mood, the style, this is not the hub of activity, maybe for your house. This is maybe where you go to relax at the end of the day. Cool. We're going to take all of these things into consideration and say, all right, we need to do your session here. It needs to be at this time. You need to wear these clothes so that it goes with the colors and the artwork in your room. All of these things, we have context for it. I think that's really, to me, that's really the point of this process. Is it's an intentional process. We're not just throwing things out there just because. Every single piece is exactly where it should be to lead a client step by step from being interested in artwork to actually having artwork on the wall, all the way to our members will install that artwork for their clients and all of that so that the client doesn't have to do anything. So anyway, I get really excited about this. I'm sorry. Yeah. I know that I'm going way off of what you asked, but
you answered the question of, what was the phrase delight your client.
Yep.
And I think the fun part about it, and the reason that we do this podcast is because we want people to go from nothing to profit, right? And so essentially what you've done is you've taken people from nothing, really making very little per hour as a photographer to profiting, but you're also delighting the client too. You're not, it's not something where you're taking advantage of them or they're ending up with something they want.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what we found is, we saw this in our own business, and then we were able to kind of replicate it in our members' businesses, is this idea that, our clients were raving about this process because we were finally giving them something to rave about. This idea that like, how do I get referrals? Do I need to build a referral program? I'm like, no, do something worth referring, and we would get people all the time. Hey, I was over at so-and-so's house and I saw this to me is the best example. We would get this all the time. I was over at Janie's house. This is a client who we can point to like $80,000 in revenue from this one client. I was over at Janie's house and I saw her artwork on the wall, and I asked her, who did it? And she said, oh, it's Chris and Adrian. And then she ended up talking to us for a half an hour about all the stuff that you did. So it was like this idea that like, yeah, the images were good enough. They were excited about the images, but the thing that she talked to her friends about was the service that we provided. And that to me felt like, okay, we're on the right track here. We're doing something right.
That's awesome. Okay, well, guys, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the industry. And then we have some lightning round questions for you as well.
Let's do it.
Hey, everyone. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You look at your calendar and notice you need clients now. So you do a little marketing and get some phone calls. You get busy helping those new clients. They schedule sessions, they place orders, and life is good. But once they're done, your calendar is empty again. The reason is you didn't have time to market while you were busy. Sometimes your business feels like a roller coaster. And let me tell you something, it is. And believe me, you're not alone. Photographers everywhere have the same problem. But I have some great news. Matt's business, Allison Ragsdale Photography, after years of trial and error, has cracked the code. It works so well, he's created a new class all about it. It's called Get Clients Now, a dead, simple approach to getting photography clients. Everyone at From Nothing to Profit is excited to share this info with you because this system helped Matt and Allison book hundreds of clients this year at their studio. And the best part about this system is that it's simple to set up and it works while you're sleeping. No hard selling or creepy marketing. All you have to do is help your clients answer their most pressing questions. Clients love the system and say it is the #1 reason they book with Matt and Allison. If you're interested in learning more about this system, go to photopodcast.co/simple. Matt has created a short free video that introduces this system. If you like what you hear, podcaster listeners get an exclusive discount on the full class. So make sure you go to photopodcast.co/simple and sign up for the free video. It will help you book more clients now and create the business you've always wanted.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. We are having a fantastic interview with Chris Scott, and he is teaching us a lot about in-person sales and how that can take you from nothing to profit. And so, Chris, we talked a little bit earlier. You're not a full-time photographer right now. Is that correct?
That's true. Yep, that's right.
So one of our questions that we always ask is what was holding you back from becoming a full-time photographer? But I do feel like there are a lot of people that transitioned through being a photographer to other things. And so maybe you can shed a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, at that time in my life, what kept me from transitioning?
What I would like to know is how you've felt about the transition from not being a full-time photographer, but transitioning from that to your next step in life.
Yeah. For us, it was kind of it just kind of needed to happen. Our side project took off. And then, like I was talking about earlier, the rheumatoid arthritis started to set in. So whether I knew it or not, I was going to have to be out. We just got really, really lucky that we had a a fallback
Yeah.
in place, because I think I probably only had about 8 months left as a photographer. Now looking back in hindsight, I probably only had about 8 months left of being able to shoot full time before the rheumatoid arthritis really would have taken
So
over.
how did you feel about that? As far as not being a photographer, because I feel
it's
like
still bittersweet.
is it? Because
Yeah.
being a photographer is really sexy, and when you say you're not, it's like, oh,
It is.
that.
No, it's really hard, because I still really kind of identify as a photographer. I think that I still think like a photographer. I hang out with my photographers, and I mean, it really is. It's such a huge part of who I am that it's hard to say that I'm not. And I do. I still wish I could shoot every day. Now it's just a matter of health and time. I just don't have the time for it anymore. But thankfully, we've been able to stay involved in the industry, just kind of in a different aspect as teachers and as software developers now. So,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, Matt, do you want to ask about the $1,000?
Yeah, these are my favorite questions, Chris. You ready?
all right,
Okay.
let's do it.
So hypothetically speaking, if you had if I gave you $1,000 right now, like what would you buy that's like photo industry related, or what would you tell our audience they should spend that $1,000 on?
$1,000. See, let's see. I would probably get a mirrorless camera.
Okay.
Yep. Just because I remember the days of hauling around a 5D Mark II with a battery grip on it and a 70-200 and a 580 EX2 on top. No wonder my hands hurt, by the end of a doubleheader wedding weekend. And the idea of mirrorless now, I'm just like, gosh, it makes me feel like an old man, because I'm like, well, back in my day,
we had mirrors in our cameras.
We had mirrors in our cameras, and I carried a 25-pound rig all day, So I think that's where I would go today.
Yeah, and I'm definitely in the market for that. It sounds like everyone's really pleased. We're Nikon shooters, and everyone's really pleased with the Nikon mirrorless stuff.
Nice.
And there's supposedly going to be an update coming where like the eye autofocuses on an eye like Sony's had for a while now.
Yep.
And as soon as they come out with that update, I think I'm ready to make the switch too, because it just seems so much better now than than the mirror versions for sure.
Yep.
Well, let me
Okay, here's
ask.
the second question.
Wait,
Go
Matt.
ahead.
So are the mirrorless literally lighter?
Yeah.
Oh, they're much smaller. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lenses tend to be about half the size too, because it's just less glass too.
Okay. That's really interesting, because I started out shooting Hasselblads. Like I literally could not hold it.
Right.
And so when we went to 35 millimeter, I was like, this thing is like a feather, but now it's not. And one of the reasons I asked you that question before transitioning out of being a photographer, I know a lot of people that physically can't be photographers anymore. It's a very physical job. And, I'm 45 and I'm like, okay, do I have 20 years left of this?
Right.
I don't know if I physically do. I want to, but do I physically have 20 years left? So, making a plan of what you're going to do next, or how you're going to do it, or buying a camera that's way lighter. That really makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
like
Okay,
that.
so here's the second question then. Okay, so if I give you $1,000 again, but what would you not encourage people to spend that on?
All right. So this is going to fly right in the face of the last answer, but I felt like I had to have an answer for that. So my answer would be, I would not encourage someone to buy more gear.
Yeah.
I would encourage them instead to go buy a copywriting course, or an advertising course, or a marketing course. Like I would encourage them to invest that money into the business side of things. I think as photographers, we really love the bells and whistles, and we like the stuff that makes our photos prettier. But at the end of the day, if you can't sell the thing that you create, then you do not have a business.
Yeah. Well, I know so many photographers that are, shooting a Nikon, D90 and making tons of money. And then other people that have, 3 backup cameras of the highest end, and they're not making money. You know what I mean?
Hey, now.
Yeah. And
right. Gear is one of those things. Like, the gear companies convince you that's the solution to making more money, but like Chris said, I don't think it is.
Yeah. Really, if you sit back and honestly ask yourself, will buying the Mark, whatever the next one is, version of what I have, actually contribute directly to my bottom line? then I think most of the time you're going to be able to say no.
Yeah. And in all fairness, there are times when you're like shooting a wedding and you're like, okay, this gear is actually holding me back from doing a couple of these shots. So then in that case, you may actually, it is getting in your way.
Yes, absolutely.
Most of the upgrading of camera body is not going to dramatically improve your life. But I tell you what, mirrorless does seem like it's quite a leap forward for sure. So.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Kaya.
Okay. So, Chris, what is the best advice you've ever received?
All right. So this one was in a hot tub in Orange Beach. Is that Alabama? I think it's Alabama. It's, down by
every
Lake
good
Tallahassee.
story starts with a hot tub in Alabama.
Exactly. I was sitting with a good friend of mine, a guy named Sean McClellan, and I was brand new, and it was one of these, like, we just happened to be friends with this guy who they ran a phenomenal photography business. And the best advice I got was from him. And he said, I was saying, how can I justify charging the prices that you guys are charging? And his advice to me was, you are not your client, and I've thought about that day in and day out since that day. This was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, probably. And it's this idea that, like, it's okay if I can't afford me. I am not my client. And I need to get out of my own way.
Yeah, I know. It is something it's when because I've had a lot of people that work for me, and it's really hard to instill that into people, like, it's okay. Like, I have to go, you make this much and they make 10 times this much. Like, when they're spending this amount, it's like buying Starbucks, compared to what they bring in, that kind of thing. So you're not taking, money away from their children going to college or, whatever.
Yep.
So, Chris, what is one personal habit you think contributes to your success?
All right. So this one is kind of like my personal mantra, and we teach it to all of our members, and I hear probably every week from somebody like, hey, I took this and applied it to something completely different outside of my business, and it's life-changing. So I'll share it with you guys. My personal mantra is make it work, then make it better. And it's this idea that, like, we wait until everything's perfect to do something. And I am guilty of this. I am a recovering perfectionist. This idea that, like, I can't push this out there yet because I don't have, the landing page just right, or I can't, launch my in-person sales process yet because I don't know every nook and cranny of the sales meeting. And so we really encourage all of our members, and basically anybody who will listen to me, to make it work, then make it better. Put something out there today, then circle back tomorrow to make it better. And it is so much easier to iterate your way to success than it is to just wait and wait and wait and launch something that's perfect on day one.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I have to practice that and consciously think about that. I'm not a perfectionist in the fact that I get paralyzed by it, but I definitely maybe take it like a day or two, or a conversation or two too long, than just put it out there. So, and I always feel better when something's just launched and out there, whether it's perfect or not,
Yep. Yeah, that's been a huge thing for me, being able to just say, hey, you know what? No, this works. Put it out there. I'll circle back tomorrow. I'll make it better.
That's great. So, Chris, we definitely want to hear about your personal internet resources and things that you provide. Mm-hmm. But before that, would you recommend to our listeners an internet resource?
Yeah. So I got to be honest, I was prepared to just pitch my own thing. No, I'm just joking. No, it's fine. I'm really just kidding. Something that we use, a ton in our own business. And this is, I don't know if this is going to be helpful, but, is, MiniChat. We've been using MiniChat. That's MANY, not MINI. MANY. It is a chatbot software for Facebook Messenger. And we've been seeing some really, really good results. And I would love to see photographers start embracing things like Facebook Messenger, and especially the bots, and being able to use some of those automated processes on their own businesses. We talk to so many of our members, and this is another thing that's changed since we were shooting, is a ton of our members say that they get the vast majority of their inquiries now through Facebook Messenger. So you already know that your people are there and they're using it. So why not use something like MiniChat to be able to interact with them in real time on your behalf? So that's something that I think people should be looking into.
So I have a really great story about MiniChat. So I went to Traffic and Conversion conference like 3 or 4 years ago. And the MiniChat guys were there, and they didn't even have a table because they were just a small company, had figured out how to use the API with Facebook Messenger and stuff like that. Well, anyways, long story short, they got the ear of the people, that were on stage and stuff like that. And we're kind of pitching it. And at the very end of the conference, they gave them an opportunity to come up there and like show their product and kind of pitch it as like the next marketing idea, like email marketing version 2 or whatever it was, the idea. And so this guy gets up there, and like, no offense to the guys that do it because they're probably amazing, but it just felt super nerdy. They're obviously coding guys. Yep. And they get up there and they show this product, and every traffic and conversion is like 5,000 people and 5,000 marketers, and they did a really good job of pitching it, and everybody like signed up for it because at that point it was so dirt cheap, right? They was just like they're trying to do proof of concept at that point.
That's still dirt cheap, but yeah.
So we all signed up for it, and then like within 2 days of getting back from the conference, people were having problems linking it to Facebook because it was still just like not quite dialed, not their software, but even on the Facebook side, it wasn't quite dialed. And literally they had to put up an autoresponder like, hey, just a heads up, we may be a while to get back to you. We had like, 3,000 people sign up for our product. And so it's like 2 guys in an office that went from like 50 customers to like 3,000 overnight. And they literally were like off the grid and trying to scale their business like for almost a year. And then they came back onto the grid and were advertising and had a team and the support team and all that stuff. And it's a great product, but it was so interesting to see someone have that much success that literally broke their systems of their business.
Yeah. That's on a larger scale what we saw when Prevail launched. When I say it kind of took over our lives, it was kind of like that. We put it out there and it was just like, cool, here it is. And then suddenly we had thousands of users and we're like, oh, this is not what we thought was about to happen. Like,
These people need help.
Yeah, exactly. This is a full-time gig now. So I think they've built an amazing tool over there. There's obviously still stuff that needs to happen, but Facebook Messenger right now it's so hot right now. That's a Zoolander reference, but it really is. When you look at the open and click through rates, I'm about to get really geeky, but with email, you're lucky if you get like a 20% open rate and a 2% click through rate. And with Messenger, we're seeing 90+% open rates and 50 or 60% click through rates. It's absolutely absurd. So jump on it now before it gets saturated.
So can I ask a question about it? So you're saying that with MiniChat, what it does is it sends an unsolicited message to people, or is it them contacting you and then it automatically responds back?
Yes. Do you want to take that one, Matt? Do you want me to do it?
I mean, basically, like they're subscribing to your Messenger thing. So they're opting into it. It's more like opting into an email list, but instead of delivering emails, it delivers it through Facebook Messenger. So it's not like cold stranger stuff. It's more like you opt in and then you can push notifications out to our messages out to them in Messenger after they've subscribed. So it's like an alternative to an email list. It would just be a Messenger list.
Oh, okay. I have no idea about this, but I don't spend very much time on Facebook.
And that's fair. You may have used it, but you are not that much of a Facebook user. Like anytime you're in Messenger and it says like, start now, and then it sends you occasionally you'll get a notification that there's a sale going on or something like that. It's probably ran by one of those companies.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, cool. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to clarify because I thought if I have the question, other people might have that question too.
Yeah. It's pretty slick. Definitely. I mean, it's like email version 2.0 because, it's like they're already on Facebook. So,
yes.
Okay. So one last question, and then we'll do some parting guidance and how people can connect with you and stuff like that. But do you have any books that you would recommend to our audience?
Yeah. I've really been into a book called 10X Marketing Formula. It's by Garrett Moon over at CoSchedule.
Okay.
Yeah. He's the founder, or maybe one of the co-founders. I think he's the founder over at CoSchedule. And it's just a really, really solid book on content marketing and on the 80-20 principle. Basically this idea that like we're focusing on way too many things as business owners. We try to tackle a bunch of stuff when really this small subset of things is actually going to push your business forward. So it really has helped me focus in on that. Like, what's the stuff that's actually going to matter? And let's forget about everything else and just focus on those things. So it's
tell me what it's called again?
Yeah, it's called 10X Marketing Formula.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Definitely have to look up that one because I'm definitely trying to like simplify my life and downsize some stuff that you cut loose of some stuff that I don't need. Like you said, that is the 20% doesn't really move the needle.
Yeah, or it's actually the 80% that doesn't move the needle. So you're focusing
I was
just on
gonna
the 20. Yeah.
Right. See, I'll get it figured out, guys.
Yeah. No, that's even better news for you. You can forget 80% of it. So yeah, it's a great book. I think you're gonna like it.
That's a big commitment. I don't know if I'm ready for that. So if you listen to our podcast with Brianna Gamble, like I had a little therapy session where she was like, she's really good at starting things, and then like if it doesn't work, just letting it go.
Yep.
And we had a great little therapy session for Matt where it was like, well, Matt, here's your problem. This is actually why you're stressed out.
Awesome.
So yeah. Okay, so I'll just wrap up real quick. So just any parting guidance for our audience, but also, where to connect with you, how best to see the content that you and your wife are putting out and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think that the biggest piece of guidance I would have is that if you are wearing yourself down with shooting and burning or selling online, but you've been hesitant to switch to in-person sales because it just seems like this big, scary beast of a thing. It does not have to be that hard. Just ignore all of the people who are saying you have to go out and you have to buy this and you have to do that. Like, just start serving your clients better. Help them figure out what to do with the images that you create for them, and you're doing in-person sales. I mean, it really is nothing more than helping your clients figure out what to do with the stuff that you're creating for them, and being that guide, being that expert, that professional, who can say, yeah, you know what? I think you should do this. We like to overcomplicate things. It's really nothing more than that. So make it work, then make it better, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
Awesome.
Okay, so how can people connect with you? What's the best way to for them to kind of see what you guys are doing?
Yeah, just give us a listen over on the Printmaker Podcast, and you can go over to the printmakerpodcast.com and listen over there, or obviously you can get us on all the places, iTunes and Spotify and all of that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Chris, so much for being on. I'm glad we finally got to connect more. Like we live in the Facebook world together for years.
Right. I need to make it out to Durango because it's one of my favorite places in the state.
I mean, we got more snow this year than we can handle, so this will be a good year to come down. Last year we had that big fire, forest fire, but this year would be an awesome year for you to come down and see what Durango's all about. So
yeah, we got to get back out there. We took our kids a couple of years ago. My son wasn't even born yet, so we took our daughter on the Polar Express train around Christmas time. So it's time to make it back out there.
Yeah, you got to come in the summer and see, everything that we have to offer, because it's a really amazing place. So, and you're only a couple hours
fine, if I have to.
I'll even tell you, you just take US 24 to 285.
Yeah, no, it's actually
you're here before you know it. You're here before you know it.
It's a really easy drive. It's a beautiful drive too, especially over Wolf Creek Pass and all of that. It's a stunning drive. So, hey, I'm sold. You got to. You know what? I'll put you on the phone with my wife.
Perfect, and she'll just book it. So awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it, and I know our listeners got a lot of value from what you had to say, and we'll definitely be listening to your podcast as always. So thanks so much.
Perfect. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to From Nothing to Profit, a photographer's podcast with Matt and Kaya. Be sure to subscribe for more business strategy and ideas to help you create the profitable and successful business you've always wanted. See you on the next episode of From Nothing to Profit.